They say true horror doesn't always lurk in abandoned houses or shadowy woods. Sometimes it hides inside the human soul. Imagine a young girl, pure and innocent, suddenly changing into someone unrecognizable. Imagine hearing voices that no one else can hear, screams at night that no doctor can explain, and eyes that once held dreams now staring with terror at things invisible. This is not just a movie. This is a true story, and once you begin, you won't be able to look away. Her name was Anneliese Michel. Born in Bavaria, West Germany, in 1952. By all accounts, she was a devout Catholic girl. Quiet, kind, loved by her parents, and admired for her deep faith. For the first years of her life, everything seemed normal. But in her teenage years, the shadows began to creep in. It started subtly. One evening, she collapsed unexpectedly. Her body stiffened, her lips trembled, and her eyes rolled back into her head. Doctors called it an epileptic seizure. At first, her family trusted the medical explanation. Pills, treatments, and reassurances followed. But soon, the seizures turned into something far darker. Anneliese began hearing voices. At night, she told her family that she felt an unseen presence pressing her down, choking her, pinning her to her bed. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. Only her wide, terrified eyes revealed the torment she was in. She described hearing whispers, sometimes cruel, mocking laughter, sometimes guttural growls that made her skin crawl. Doctors told her parents it was Milch's temporal lobe epilepsy, combined with psychosis. They prescribed stronger medication, but the pills only made her weak, her body frail, and her mind clouded. Still, the darkness refused to leave her. By 1970, the symptoms had escalated. Anneliese said she saw Chemioni, demonic faces, during her daily prayers. When she entered a church, her body convulsed violently. Holy water burned her skin as though it were acid. She began to scream in agony at the sight of crucifixes, and her voice, once gentle and soft, would twist into deep, animalistic growls. Her parents grew terrified. Doctors kept insisting it was psychiatric illness, but the Michels were deeply religious, and in their hearts they began to believe something else was happening, something science couldn't explain. Anneliese herself begged for spiritual help. She told her parents, "I am possessed. It's not the medicine, it's not my mind. There are dark spirits inside me." Her words shook them, but her actions were even worse. She began destroying religious symbols in her room, tearing at her rosary, and screaming obscenities in voices that didn't sound like her own. The family reached out to the Catholic Church for an exorcism, but permission for such rituals was rarely granted. The church insisted they continue with medical treatment. For years, Anneliese was trapped in a war between science and faith, between doctors who saw only a sick girl and priests who suspected something far more sinister. Her suffering grew unbearable. By 1973, her behavior had crossed into the unimaginable. She ate spiders and insects. She drank her own urine from the floor. Her strength, though her body was weakening, became unnatural. She could throw her sister across the room with one sudden movement. At night, the walls echoed with her guttural screams, lasting for hours. Her parents knew this was no ordinary illness. It was then that Father Ernst Alta Tequosewayat, Ikoosik, a local priest, entered the story. After meeting Anneliese, he wrote to the bishop declaring, "She doesn't look like an epileptic. She doesn't act like one. She is truly possessed." And so began the road that would lead to one of the most chilling exorcism cases in history. But little did anyone know, this battle between light and darkness would end in tragedy, a courtroom, and a mystery that still haunts the world to this day. The year was 1975, and Anneliese Michel's torment had reached a terrifying peak. Her once bright eyes were now hollow and sunken, her face pale and gaunt, her body, weakened by years of seizures and relentless attacks, seemed to be wasting away. But within her fragile frame burned something fierce and violent. It was as though several voices fought for control inside her, each one more hateful than the last. The church finally gave its approval. After years of hesitation, Bishop Joseph Stangl authorized the ancient ritual of exorcism. He assigned 2 priests, Father Arnold Rentz and Father Ernst Alt, to carry out the rites. For Anneliese and her family, this was the last hope. Medicine had failed, doctors had abandoned explanations, and the evil presence inside her was stronger than ever. The first exorcism took place in September of 1975. Her family gathered around as Father Rentz opened the old Latin prayers, invoking the name of Christ. At the sound of the holy words, Anneliese's body twisted violently, her back arched unnaturally, her fists clenched, and from her throat erupted a growl so deep it seemed inhuman. The voice that came out was not hers. It was guttural, mocking, filled with hatred. "She belongs to us," it snarled. "You cannot save her." For hours the priests prayed, sprinkling holy water, pressing crucifixes to her skin. She screamed, thrashed, and spat at them, her strength so unnatural that it took several men to hold her down. Her family watched in horror, their hearts breaking as their beloved daughter became a battlefield between forces they could not see. In the weeks that followed, the exorcisms continued. Night after night, the priests returned. The sessions sometimes lasted 4 hours, sometimes longer. What they witnessed was recorded on tapes, horrifying evidence of what she endured. On those recordings, Anneliese's voice shifts between multiple identities. At times, she claimed to be Judas, the betrayer of Christ. At other times, she called herself Nero, the cruel Roman emperor. Then came the voice of Cain, the first murderer, and even Adolf Hitler. Each voice was distinct, angry, mocking, fighting to be heard. It was as if her body had become the prison of countless damned souls. Her behavior grew more disturbing with every passing day. She would drop to her knees suddenly, praying obsessively, sometimes hundreds of times in a single night until her legs were bruised and swollen. She tore her clothes, screamed for hours without rest, and attacked anyone who came near her. Her screams were so loud, neighbors claimed they could hear them from outside the house. Food became unbearable to her. She refused to eat, claiming that demons would not allow it. Her weight dropped alarmingly. Her once youthful face grew skeletal. Her lips cracked. Her teeth broken from biting herself in violent fits. Still, the exorcisms continued. In total, 67 sessions were performed over the course of 10 months. Each time, the priests believed they were close to driving the demons out. Each time, the demons seemed only to mock them more. The family was caught in a nightmare without escape. They believed completely that Anneliese was possessed, but the cost of fighting for her soul was destroying her body. Her mother wept through the nights, praying for mercy, while her father held her frail body during the violent convulsions. Her sisters barely recognized her anymore. The girl who once smiled softly at dinner was now a hollow, raging figure, whose eyes blazed with torment. Through it all, Anneliese herself begged for help. Despite her agony, there were moments when her true voice broke through the chaos. She told her mother, "I want to suffer for the sins of others. I want to offer my pain." Her words shocked even the priests. She believed her torment was not meaningless, but a burden she was chosen to carry. Whether this was her faith speaking, or the last desperate hope of a girl being consumed, no one could say. But one thing was certain: time was running out. Each exorcism weakened her more. Her body could no longer withstand the relentless battle. The priests pressed on, convinced that victory was near. Yet behind every scream, every twisted movement, and every haunting growl, it seemed that the darkness inside her only grew stronger. And as spring of 1976 approached, the line between life and death began to blur. Anneliese was fading, but the demons refused to let go. By the summer of 1976, Anneliese Michel was no longer the girl she once had been. 67 exorcism sessions had ravaged her body. Her face was sunken, her skin bruised, and her fragile frame weighed barely 90 pounds. Still, her eyes burned with an intensity that terrified everyone who looked at her. Her parents and the priests believed they were in the final stretch of the battle. But her body was failing faster than her spirit. In June, the exorcisms reached their most violent stage. Anneliese fell to her knees hundreds of times in a single night, the bones in her legs swelling from the impact. She bit herself, tore her own flesh, and refused all food. When her mother begged her to eat, she whispered with cracked lips that the demons would not allow it. Sometimes her voice was her own, trembling and weak. Other times, it was guttural, filled with venom, mocking the prayers of the priests. During the final sessions, she screamed names that chilled everyone present. Lucifer, Cain, Judas, Nero, even Hitler. She claimed all of them were inside her, fighting for control. Her body convulsed so violently that several men struggled to hold her down. The recordings made during these sessions would later become infamous, evidence of the horror she endured. The sounds captured were unlike anything human, growls and roars erupting from a starving girl's throat. On the night of June 30th, 1976, her strength gave out. She collapsed on the floor, whispering that she had to suffer for others. Her last words to her mother were heartbreaking. "Mother, I'm afraid." When the sun rose the next morning, July the 1st, Anneliese Michel was gone. At only 23 years old, her battle with darkness had ended. Her frail body could no longer withstand the torment. But the horror was not over. Her death shocked Germany, and soon the entire world. Instead of peace, it sparked a storm of controversy. Her parents and the two priests, Fathers Renz and Alt, were charged with negligent homicide. The court accused them of allowing a sick young woman to die by denying her proper medical treatment. For the first time, the battle between faith and science was dragged into a courtroom. The trial began in 1978. Doctors testified that Anneliese had suffered from epilepsy and psychosis, that she had been treated with medication but refused to eat until she starved to death. The prosecution argued that the priests and her parents had fueled her delusions, letting her waste away under the weight of superstition. But the defense presented the chilling tapes of her exorcisms, letting the jury hear the guttural voices and horrifying screams that had poured from her. The defense argued that the family had truly believed she was possessed, and that Anneliese herself had begged for the exorcism. In the end, the court found the priests and her parents guilty of negligent homicide. though they received suspended sentences. But outside the walls of the courtroom, the story refused to die. Many believed the recordings were undeniable proof that something beyond medicine had taken hold of her. Others insisted it was a tragic case of untreated illness, worsened by blind faith. Even now, decades later, the debate continues. Was Anneliese Michel a victim of mental illness? Or was she truly possessed by demons? Her grave in Klingenberg has become a place of pilgrimage, visited by those who see her as a martyr who gave her life fighting evil. The chilling story of her final months has inspired films, books, and countless retellings. Yet no matter how the story is told, one truth remains. A young woman suffered a torment so unimaginable that even today her screams still echo in the minds of those who hear them on the tapes. Her story is not just a tale of possession. It is a reminder of how fragile the line is between faith and fear, between medicine and the supernatural. And it is a reminder that sometimes the darkest horror is not what hides in the shadows, but what cannot be explained at all. Her name was Anneliese Michel. The world remembers her as Emily Rose. Now the question is yours to answer. What do you believe? Was she truly possessed? Or was it all the cruelty of an illness misunderstood? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice decides how this story lives on.